Coming up this week on Outdoor Magazine, back to Ontario to hunt bears with Pete Jones of Superior Bear Outfitters. I've hunted with Pete several years now, and my quest this time to shoot a big bear of 300 pounds or more. We've also got several first-time bear hunters with us, and there's nothing like the thrill of seeing your first black bear in the Canadian bush. Lots of great bear hunting action coming up this week on Outdoor Magazine. Glad you're with us. Spent the last 3 hours looking for this bird.
I'm excited. The dogs are pumped, and they're more than excited to go.
This isn't even considered a trophy fish out here.
And I kept thinking, any minute there's going to be a buck coming through here. Any minute.
All of a sudden he stepped right out in the wide open, and I made my shot.
Some bear, another bear, will be back in here before too long.
This, I believe, is a personal best for me.
I just shot the biggest buck of my life.
Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Dow Chemical Company, Ameristep, the Outdoor Magazine radio show and podcast, Darton Archery, and by Dixie Dave's Wild Game Zoos.
Well, this week here on the Outdoor Magazine show, back to one of my favorite places to hunt, White River, Ontario, Pete Jones of Superior Bear Outfitters.
Yep. Every year we seem to be expanding a little more and building the business up a bit, and been good.
I've hunted with Pete and his family several years now. Each time it's a great trip. There are lots of bears. The people there are wonderful, and there is some absolutely beautiful scenery in that part of northern Ontario. So on this hunt now, we're dealing with a full moon. I absolutely hate hunting on a full moon. That's not the only thing. There's also a tremendous berry crop in the area this year. Wild berries. The bears love those wild berries. And on years with a good berry crop, sometimes they don't come into the baits as well.
Well, this particular year there's a lot of berries out there, so they want our bait, but they don't need it. So we're telling hunters this year, if you see a bear that you would like, take the first opportunity you can, because if you bust him out of there, he may not be back.
All right, so what am I hunting with this time? Well, you can probably guess. My Darton Serpent LTD2 crossbow with Carbon Express Maxima Hunter shafts and the F15 expandable broadheads from Carbon Express I love so much. I have had such great luck with these things. One shot kill. Every time I pull the trigger, an animal seems to go down, and it just seemed like the right combination to take this time around. All right, well, it's now the opening morning, and we're going to head out this afternoon, but I want to shoot my crossbow a couple of times just to make sure it's on. There's no reason it shouldn't be, but why go out into the bush and have a beautiful bear walk in front of you and not be completely confident in your equipment? So I'm going to shoot my Darton Serpent LTD2. My good friend Harley Holsinger's got his Darton Serpent as well, and we're going to throw a few arrows and just make sure everything is good to go. Well, I was talking with Pete before the hunt, and he said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "Well, Pete, you're the outfitter. Where do you think?" And he said, "Well, we've got some tracks of a big bear back in the sand pit." Well, I know the sand pit quite well. I have hunted there several years. A couple of years ago, had a very close encounter with a very big bear, and when I heard there was a big track, I said, "Let's go back to the sand pit, see if he's still around."
Well, we're out in the blind now. We're all set up. We got out here about 3:30. The bait was hit. I reset the bait. We got situated here in the blind. It's warm in here, I'll tell you that. But we're all set now. We're comfortable. And we're going to wait it out and see what happens. We don't have a lot of visibility here. In fact, we're not going to be able to see this bear until it's here. But this is the bait where we had the close encounter with the big guy a couple of years ago. And let's hope that he wants to come back today.
We sat there for a long time, and just before dark, it got dead calm to the point where you could hear anything moving through the bush. And I thought, okay, here we go. I'm expecting at any minute to see a bear come walking into that bait. And what happens? Off to our right, we hear a howl, a wolf howl, only about 100 yards away. Now, as many times as I've hunted up there and hunted wolves even, I've never heard them howl. This wolf howling 100 yards from us, even though we didn't see anything that night, I tell you what, that made the whole night in itself.
Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine is brought to you in part by the Hunter Safety System. Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine is brought to you in part by Carbon Express.
So even though that first night we didn't have much luck, my buddy R.J. Meyer's daughter Hannah, she had a pretty good night. R.J. was out in the blind with Hannah, and he was videotaping her hunt. They were also in a ground blind, and they had a close encounter with a nice bear. In fact, the bear was coming right up to the blind and looking in. And he didn't actually get the kill shot, but he got some great video of another bear that came wandering in after that. So 16-year-old Hannah gets her very first bear, the very first night hunting with Pete Jones of Superior Bear Outfitters in White River, Ontario. I would say our hunt is off to a pretty good start.
2:48. Shot him at 7:30. We were out there just a couple hours. We were up at like 7 stretching and whatever. And it was kind of cool that they just came.
She shot it and set a mag, and it just went straight down and didn't make a sound, didn't make a move, and that was it.
Well, for some reason, I've been pretty late in coming to the trail camera party. I don't know why. I don't know what took me so long, but I finally picked up a couple of nice Moultrie Game Spy cameras, the real tiny cameras that take great pictures, and I put them out on that bait the first night. Well, I didn't quite know what I was doing yet, but I did manage to grab a couple of images that night. A medium-sized bear coming in about 10 o'clock at night, well after shooting hours, but at least I had an image. So now day 2. I see no reason not to go back to the sand pit again, even though we didn't see a bear the first night. The bait was hit when we got in there, and that is traditionally a good spot. So we go back in there, we set up in the Ameristep harvester blind once again, and we settle down for a long sit.
It's day 2 now here in Ontario. It's even warmer still, low 80s. The walk in, there was an awful lot of sign, wolf sign on the road, a lot of wolf tracks. Some bear tracks too, but small tracks. Big pile of bear scat though, so we're getting mixed messages here.
So we've been sitting there for a long time, nothing at all. The conditions start to get just right. You know what I mean. The light levels are dropping, the wind dies, and you think, okay, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen soon. I'm looking off into the bush, just past the bait, and out of nowhere, I see a couple of black ears show up and a black face. Right away, I said, bear. And then I thought, boy, he's not a very big bear. Turns out it wasn't a bear at all. It was a wolf. A beautiful black wolf came into our bait, nosed around a little bit, got a little bit hinky and ran off into the bush. I thought, wow, this is very, very cool. As much as I've hunted up here, I have never seen a wolf come into our bait, yet alone a beautiful black wolf like this one. Well, it wasn't too long, and this black wolf comes back. Now, people said, because I've made it very clear that my goal is to take a black wolf now with a crossbow. They said, why didn't you shoot it? Well, for one thing, the season wasn't open. The season wasn't open for another month, and also it was a very young animal. It was a very small wolf. But still, to see something so beautiful and actually, quite rare come into the bait like that, you don't see that very often. So we watched that wolf come in. I bet you she was in there for, 10, 15 minutes. We got some great video. And even though we did not see a bear that night, that wolf made for a great evening in the bush.
Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine is brought to you in part by the Outdoor Magazine radio show and podcast. Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine is brought to you in part by the Martin family of dealerships.
This week, we're back in Ontario hunting with Pete Jones of Superior Bear Outfitters. So far, I've seen more wolves than bears, but a couple of other hunters have had some luck. An old fishing buddy of mine, Harley Holtzinger, took his first bear ever using a dart and serpent crossbow. And Scott Henry also took his first bear and captured it on camera.
God almighty, look at that. I'll tell you what, that 180 grain did the trick.
Yeah. So now we're faced with a decision. What do we do here now? We're sitting in a spot that we know traditionally is a good spot, but the bears don't seem to be using it. It seems like the wolves have almost taken this bait over.
And then, you know, with the wolves howling the one night, and then you actually seen a wolf on your bait, I'm thinking that they had a kill. Like there was a moose kill there, and you know, chances are the bears were feeding on that.
So it's not that wolves will push bears out of an area, but
I think, you know, just having a moose down, the bears will, you know, they're hitting the meat very hard.
Yeah.
So with a moose being down, that's probably why your bait went dry for a couple nights.
In talking with Pete, we decided to make a move. We made a move north of town up into an area I hadn't hunted before.
This is the Ameristep Harvester. It's the replacement for the Dominator that I love so much. But this thing's even taller. I can stand up in it. It's got to be 7 feet tall.
But again, another long sit that afternoon into the evening. Nothing. Just before dark, from the left, we hear an animal walking into the bait. Well, that bear heard or saw or smelled something he didn't like. So he started to pop his jaws and break brush just to let us know that he wasn't happy with our presence. He walked around behind the blind, popping his jaws, making a lot of noise all the way around. He gets all the way around to the right of us, starts to come into the bait. Now the light is just about gone, and he never did come quite far enough in for Jim Gleason to get this all on videotape. Something spooked that bear. He wandered back off into the bush, and we never saw him again. I did put up a trail camera there, though, to see what was going on, because it was obvious there were bears in there, nice bears. And I was getting a little better with that Moultrie trail camera, and I got some wonderful images that night of multiple bears coming in, including one big boar standing on his hind legs to get a bucket full of grease, and then a little bit later, a great big huge slob of a bear comes in to eat at that bait. So there were bears coming into that bait, but they knew there were people hunting it, and it didn't make a lot of sense to stay there. So the fourth night of our hunt, we decided to make yet another move to a bait we hadn't hunted before.
Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine is brought to you in part by Buck Fever Synthetic Scents. Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine is brought to you in part by the Outdoor Magazine radio show and podcast.
Okay, so this third stand, our fourth night of the hunt. Again, we had not been there before. I hadn't even, I don't think, been down this road before. Pete took us in because you really can't describe where these are. At least the first time in, you have to have Pete or one of the guides take you to show you where it's at.
This is, it's in a jack pine plantation. It's on a new area. This area hasn't been hunted in about 8 years. It's a new bait, but it's been super active, so pretty confident you'll see bears tonight.
And the only place to set up a ground blind, and we had the Ameristep Dominator with us at this point, was kind of up on a hill on this great big rock. This rock must have been 10 feet across. So we managed to get the blind set up there, and actually it was a great setup. We had a good view of the bait. It blended in very well. We were quite comfortable.
All right, as we do some last-minute preparations here in the blind, Jim's cleaning the lens off the camera to make sure everything's good to go. This is day 4 of our hunt here in northern Ontario with Pete Jones and Superior Bear Outfitters. We've moved to yet another new spot. This one, Jim and I are both very excited about this. Lots of sign of big bears. We've got a real neat setup here. The blind is in the perfect spot. We got a beaver tied to a tree in front of us, and you know, beaver are bear candy. So I think, I don't want to jinx this, but I think this is the night.
Okay, about 7 o'clock. We've been sitting there several hours now. About 7 o'clock, a bear comes in from the left. He's coming into the bait. And it appears out of nowhere like they do when the bush is so thick like this. I looked at this bear and immediately I said, not only shooter bear, I said, big bear. This is a nice bear. The bear came in, sniffed around a little bit, looked at us. I know he knew we were there, and decided he didn't want any part of us. And he wandered off into the bush. I thought, oh boy, is this the only time we're going to see this bear? I mean, it looked like he was a trophy bear. What little, the quick look I got at him. And I thought, boy, I hope he doesn't wander back off into the bush and stay there. I was cautiously optimistic, though, because we had that beaver tied to that tree. And the first time the bear came through, he was sniffing that beaver. You knew he wanted to get at that thing. So I thought, if anything's going to bring him back in, that beaver will. And it did. Okay, so I know I've got a good shot. If anything, it's a couple of inches high, but it's a good shot, and I'm confident that that animal is down. But we didn't hear a death moan. You don't always hear that with a bear, but it gives you a certain level of confidence when you go off tracking a bear. If you've heard that death moan, you know he's down.
All right. Here's my arrow. Carbon Express, Maxima Hunter. F-15 expandable broadhead. As you can see, it passed through. Smells good. Look at this. Think these bears are eating good? Wow.
Started to get a little bit nervous, though, because at first I wasn't finding a lot of blood. A little bit here, a little bit there. But we stayed on the track, stayed on the trail. And eventually he opened up. Then we saw a good blood sign. It was much easier to follow. After maybe 75 yards, how can you tell when the bush is so thick? About 75 yards, I saw him up there laying on his side. You know, the thing about bears, every bear I've ever shot, when you got up to it, there was some ground shrinkage. They look a lot bigger on all fours than they do laying there dead. Not this time. Walked up to this bear, and I knew right away I had a trophy.
Not bad. It's not a bad bear. Well, we found him. It was a long tracking job, but I'd say it's worth it, wouldn't you? Look at the size of this bear. This is a big, beautiful Northern Ontario black bear, taken with Pete Jones and Superior Bear Outfitters.
In my mind, I knew he was over 300 pounds. I was thinking, boy, maybe if I can get 350, that's going to be where it goes. Now, 350 pounds is a nice black bear. They come bigger, but a 350 pound black bear is a nice animal. We got him back to the skinning shed and put him on a scale, because at Superior Bear Outfitters, there is no lying about bear size. Well, there might be some lying, but everybody knows how much their bears weigh. Well, here's the bear I shot last night. I just wanted to give you a little better look at him in the daylight. 334 pounds on a scale, big belly, even some gray hair. He kind of reminds me of myself. You know, that Dart and Serpent LTD-2 crossbow is just a phenomenal weapon. I've had such great luck with that. The Carbon Express Maxima Hunter shafts, the F-15 expandable heads, they all combine to do a great job. Thanks to Pete Jones, Superior Bear Outfitters, everybody up here, a great operation. I can't recommend them enough. If you're looking for a bear hunt in Ontario, I would check out Superior Bear Outfitters. Thanks to Pete, and as always, again, thank you, God, for a beautiful, beautiful trophy.
Closed captioning of Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Dow Chemical Company. Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Dow Chemical Company, Ameristep, the Outdoor Magazine radio show and podcast, Darton Archery, and by Dixie Dave's Wild Game Soups.
Thanks for watching the Outdoor Magazine television show. I also want to encourage you to check us out on the web. The Facebook page is facebook.com/Outdoor Magazine. It's an easy one, facebook.com/Outdoor Magazine. I'd also like to encourage you to check out the Outdoor Magazine radio show. You can hear it on broadcast stations across Michigan and as a podcast everywhere else. You can hear Outdoor Magazine radio on iTunes, on the Outdoor Magazine Facebook page, the website as well. We even have a couple of Outdoor Magazine radio apps for your Android or Apple phone to make it easy for you to listen anytime, anywhere. For details on those, check out the website, outdoormagazine.tv. That's outdoormagazine.tv.